In a recent development that has shocked the Nigerian public, a notorious bandit leader, known as Bello Turji, has openly challenged the Nigerian Chief of Defense Staff, CDS, General Christopher Musar, in a brazen display of defiance. Turji, in a video, made startling claims, alleging that the Nigerian government is directly involved in sponsoring banditry, adding further weight to ongoing suspicions regarding the state's role in the country's worsening security crisis. Bello Turji, who leads one of the most feared bandit groups in northern Nigeria, directly addressed General Musa in a video widely circulated on social media. In the video, Turji referred to Musa as our leader, an alarming phrase suggesting that high-ranking officials within the Nigerian government may be providing support to bandits. He further challenged the Nigerian military to confront him and his group on the battlefield, specifically daring the CDS to arm himself and face the bandits in combat. The statement, which many interpreted as a taunt, raises significant questions about the relationship between bandit groups and the government. Turji's boldness stems from his belief that the government will not act against him due to alleged ties with key officials. He referenced the former governor of Zamfara State, now the Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, claiming that the latter has provided material support to his group, including vehicles and financial assistance. In his video, Turji explicitly accused Nigerian government officials of sponsoring his activities, stating that they are untouchable because of these powerful connections. According to him, he has been protected by the state, making it difficult for any law enforcement or military personnel to take decisive action against him. He went further to accuse the government of hypocrisy, pointing out that while they are focusing on security operations in other parts of the country, particularly the southeast, they have allowed his group and others like it to thrive in the north. This, Turji claims, is due to the government's vested interest in maintaining the status quo. One of the most striking revelations from Turji's video was his admission to imposing a 50 million naira levy on communities in Zamfara State, specifically the residents of Emoriki town. He confirmed that the money was collected as a form of tax for allowing residents to live in peace, further illustrating the level of control that bandit groups have over rural communities in northern Nigeria. The bandit leader justified the imposition of the levy, citing the killing of Fulani herdsmen by local communities as a reason for his group's aggressive stance. He claimed that his people were killed while peacefully grazing, and his group is now avenging those deaths by targeting the local populace. General Christopher Musar, the Chief of Defense Staff, recently vowed to take all necessary steps to arrest Turji and bring him to justice. However, the bandit leader's response has been one of mockery and provocation. Turji scoffed at Musar's threat, reiterating that his group enjoys the support of influential figures within the government, making any attempt to capture him futile. Turji's remarks have sparked outrage among Nigerians, with many questioning the credibility of the government's efforts to curb banditry. Despite the military's ongoing operations, bandit groups continue to terrorize large swathes of northern Nigeria, engaging in kidnapping, extortion, and other criminal activities. Turji's most damning allegation was aimed at the former governor of Zamfara State, Bello Matawalle, who he claimed was instrumental in providing resources for the bandit group. According to Turji, Matawalle not only facilitated negotiations with bandit leaders, but also sabotaged efforts to end the crisis by protecting the interests of the bandits. Matawalle, now serving as the Minister of State for Defense, has long been a controversial figure in the security sector. During his tenure as governor, he was accused of negotiating with bandit groups and offering them amnesty, a policy that many critics argued only emboldened the criminals. Turji's claims add a new layer of complexity to the ongoing debate about the state's role in fostering insecurity in Nigeria. The video also raised concerns about Turji's connections to other extremist groups, such as Boko Haram and Ansaro. In the video, Turji called on prominent Islamic clerics, including Sheikh Ahmed Gumi, to join his group on the battlefield. Gumi, who has been an outspoken advocate for negotiating with bandits, has not yet responded to the challenge. The increasing ties between bandit groups and Islamist militias are heightening tensions in the region. Northern Nigeria, already grappling with a decade-long insurgency by Boko Haram, is now facing an additional threat from bandits who are growing bolder in their operations. The line between insurgents and bandits is becoming increasingly blurred, further complicating efforts to restore peace in the region. Following the release of Turji's video, many Nigerians have taken to social media to express their outrage and disbelief. Citizens are demanding that the government take immediate and decisive action against the bandit leader and those he claims are sponsoring him. Human rights activists, security experts, and political commentators have also weighed in on the controversy, urging the Nigerian government to investigate Turji's claims and hold accountable any officials found to be colluding with bandit groups. They argue that the government's credibility is at stake, and failure to address these allegations could lead to a complete breakdown of law and order in the country. Security experts have warned that the Nigerian government's failure to take swift action against bandit groups is fueling a cycle of violence that will be difficult to break. According to them, the government's reliance on negotiation and appeasement has only emboldened the bandits, allowing them to consolidate power in rural areas. Some experts believe that Turji's allegations of government sponsorship are credible, given the historical context of similar claims. During the administration of former President Muhammadu Buhari, there were reports of payments made to bandit leaders as part of peace agreements, which often failed to yield long-term solutions. This strategy, they argue, has backfired, leading to an increase in bandit activities and further destabilizing the country. The video released by Bello Turji has reignited the debate over the Nigerian government's handling of insecurity, particularly in the north. With Turji openly accusing high-ranking officials of sponsoring his activities, the government now faces mounting pressure to take decisive action. General Christopher Muese's vow to arrest Turji will be closely watched, as Nigerians wait to see whether the government is truly committed to ending the reign of terror imposed by bandit groups. Failure to address these allegations could have far-reaching consequences for the country's security and stability. Banditry in northern Nigeria, which involves criminal groups engaging in kidnapping, extortion, and violent attacks on communities, is not a recent phenomenon. It has evolved over the past decade, fueled by deep-rooted socio-economic inequalities, a lack of state presence, and competition over scarce resources such as land and water. This historical backdrop is essential to understanding why Bello Turji's claims resonate with the public. From a critical perspective, one could argue that banditry grew because of a vacuum created by the Nigerian government's failure to adequately address the root causes of insecurity in the region. The lack of effective governance, especially in rural areas, allowed groups like Turji's to gain power. This failure now leads to a situation where someone like Turji, a known criminal, feels confident enough to publicly challenge the government. Turji's direct accusation that high-ranking government officials, including the former governor of Zamfara State, now Minister of State for Defense, Bello Matawalle, are providing material support to bandit groups is a bombshell that raises crucial questions about the integrity of Nigeria's security apparatus. This aligns with widespread rumors that political elites in the country have historically negotiated with criminal groups for personal or political gain. Critics argue that these negotiations and payments have emboldened bandit groups rather than pacified them. In a deeper analysis, Turji's claims might be seen as symptomatic of the corruption and complicity that has eroded public trust in the Nigerian government. If true, they would represent a betrayal of the Nigerian people by those sworn to protect them. This lends weight to calls for an independent investigation into the extent of government collusion with bandit groups. Furthermore, from a critic's point of view, one might question whether General Christopher Musa's public vow to arrest Turji is genuine or merely posturing. Given the fact that these bandits operate openly with seemingly little consequence, is the government capable of bringing them to justice, or is it too entangled with these groups to act decisively? Turji's boldness, taunting the Chief of Defense Staff and asserting that government officials are protecting him, speaks to the growing disconnect between the Nigerian military's leadership and its actual ability to maintain security. This raises another question. If the military cannot control its own ranks and counter these threats effectively, what hope is there for ordinary Nigerians living under the constant threat of banditry? From a critical lens, the imposition of a 50 million naira levy on communities like those in Zamfara State by Turji's group shows the complete erosion of state authority in these areas. Bandit groups are not merely criminal gangs. They have, in many cases, become parallel governments, collecting taxes and offering a semblance of order in exchange for peace. This raises further questions about what kind of state Nigeria will become if this trend continues. Some political commentators may argue that Nigeria is inching closer to becoming a failed state in certain regions, with non-state actors exerting more control than the government. For viewers, readers, or listeners, this raises the chilling prospect of a country where the rule of law is supplanted by the rule of criminals. In response to Turji's defiance, General Musa has vowed to take action, but critics are skeptical. They argue that this is not the first time that the Nigerian government has promised to clamp down on banditry, yet the situation has only worsened. Many see Musa's words as empty rhetoric, a smokescreen to hide the government's complicity or inability to act. The Nigerian public, especially in the north, feels abandoned, left to deal with the consequences of the government's failure to maintain security. Turji's video, therefore, serves not just as a challenge to the government, but as a wake-up call to ordinary Nigerians to question the state of their country. The sharp contrast between military operations in the north and the aggressive campaigns against separatist movements in the southeast only deepens this frustration. Critics have long argued that the Nigerian government's approach to insecurity is flawed, focusing on short-term appeasement rather than long-term solutions. This pattern of negotiations and payments to bandit leaders, rather than strengthening law enforcement and addressing socio-economic grievances, has only allowed criminal groups to flourish. An alternative approach would be a holistic one that combines military action with economic development programs, effective governance, and strengthened law enforcement. Nigeria's security challenges are deeply intertwined with poverty, unemployment, and lack of education. Without addressing these underlying issues, any military solution will be temporary at best. The public reaction to Turji's video has been one of outrage, and rightly so. Many Nigerians are calling for accountability, urging the government to take a stand against the corruption and complicity that allows bandits to thrive. However, the media also plays a significant role in shaping this narrative. Some critics might argue that the media's sensationalizing of Turji's video risks emboldening him further. By giving him a platform, the media could unintentionally elevate his status among his followers. On the other hand, media exposure is necessary to pressure the government into action, making this a double-edged sword. The challenge posed by Bello Turji, both in his words and actions, is a reflection of the broader crisis Nigeria faces. The government's credibility is at an all-time low, and the military's capacity to maintain order is in doubt. The accusations of collusion between government officials and bandit groups, if proven true, would represent a national betrayal of the highest order. From a critical standpoint, the most pressing question is whether Nigeria's leadership has the will, the capability, and the integrity to confront this growing menace. Turji's taunts may be provocative, but they also expose the cracks in Nigeria's foundation. This is the end of our news update. Your comments and opinions will help shape this ongoing discussion. I will see you again in my next update. Enjoy the rest of your day.